So we're firing up. It is Friday, the Live at 5. We're wrapping up kind of a mundane week. There really hasn't been a whole lot
It's been
that's
quiet, right?
yeah, it's been, I mean, everything is normal. There's no
It's
presidential palaces being bombed and,
yeah,
what
it's a weekend. Who hasn't let a couple of pedophile scandals come between you and a good
Sure.
July?
I think Myrtle got upset down at the Piggly Wiggly that, the watermelons were 5 cents higher than advertised.
Exactly.
That was all the news. It's like, "Oh boy." Had the news van
Exactly.
out there and everything.
I
Boy, wouldn't you love to live in that world?
was about to say, don't you miss those days when that was really the big breaking news? Like, what's that Chinese? It's like a Chinese curse, right? May you live in interesting times.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
And
and I feel
we are
like we're cursed.
sure living through them,
Yep, we are cursed.
Yeah, so it's interesting, like, so before we came on, Rich of Oh, That's Rich, he posted a note where he's thinking that so we all thought Trump was trying to get reelected president to stay out of jail for the documents case and Jan 6 and then apparently, I guess it's come out he had 1,000 FBI agents combing through. I don't know. I haven't confirmed this, but
Right.
he had 1,000 FBI agents or, combing through the Epstein files and trying to get himself out. And so basically he's worried about that. And it makes so I want to get your thoughts on that. Like, do you like given the reaction we've seen from Trump over this and the Wall Street Journal piece that came out with that not at all suspicious or gross birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein, because who hasn't told a 50-year-old man the secrets we share? I mean,
Yeah.
unless you're secretly gay, you know.
Yeah. You know
So
what? Okay.
I fully expect that to come out before Trump ever admits it, you know.
Let's just put this all kind of in perspective because for those of us who grew up in the New York City media market, and I'm of a certain age where when I was a teenager, Donald Trump was kind of first at the heyday of his roaring 80s. Like, he and Ivana were on the front page of the New York Post all the time. Remember, this is the John
Yeah.
Barron era where he was leaking everything. Then, but you gotta keep in mind that parallel to all of the stuff that I'm going to talk about is his financial problems. He acquires the Plaza Hotel
Mm,
in the late 80s. By 1991, or by 1990, I want to say, he and Ivana are not just divorced, but going through a really messy financial breakup.
yeah.
And it's messy in the sense that he's cheating on her with Marla, the whole very famous best sex I ever had.
I
Uh,
I remember that.
Yeah, New York Post front page, which is Marla allegedly saying he's the best sex ever had, whereas in fact he was the one who put her up to it. He's humiliating Ivana kind of on the front page of the New York Post. Unlike Ivana doesn't really put up with it. She's humiliating him back. They're fighting with each other. And at the same time, he's going through serious financial problems.
Right.
And the first of his many bankruptcies happens right around the time that I'm about to launch into this. Well, in 1991 or 92, I think it was 91, he is hanging out with a guy named John Casablancas, who ran Elite Model Agency. And for people who don't know what Elite Modeling Agency is, it was at the time the biggest modeling agency in the world. Cindy Crawford and Naomi Campbell and, pick sort of the big models of the 80s. They were all there. And John Casablancas was their mentor.
Mm,
John Casablancas is also a total pedophile, and I'm not saying that to throw that word around lightly. I would never accuse somebody of that. But John Casablancas discovers 14-year-old Stephanie Seymour, who then went on to become a really big model. And by the time she's 16, the two of them are living together in New
mm.
York. He's 41, she is 16, and he gives this quote about her like, yes, she's got the face of a child and the voice of a child and the hands and feet of a child, but yeah, there's something about her that's kind of all woman. She's like 15, 14, 6. I mean, no, definitely no older than 16. He's in his 40s. And Then he eventually breaks up with her. He marries wife number 3. Wife number 3 is another model. He discovers he's 50 when they get married. She's 17. And he gives these quote think about I can't believe I'm saying this, but I guess back then it wasn't really like a big deal
Well,
publicly to say
yeah, Seinfeld.
Seinfeld, totally,
Yeah,
exactly.
his
Jerry
wife
Seinfeld
was
was
17 and he was like in his 30s.
yeah, they weren't married, but yeah, he's dating Shoshana Lowenstein, who was in high school, at a private school in New York, a girls' school in New York. They meet in Central Park, and he's doing his show. He's Jerry Seinfeld already. He's a huge
Right.
star. She's graduating high school. But what's fascinating is Casablancas has this thing called Elite Look of the Year. And all of these models, some of whom are as young as 14, come from all over the world. Most of them are from really random, kind of far-flung places. Many of them are poor. And this is their big chance. This is their big opportunity. And they come to New York for a week, and Casablancas has this contest called Elite Look of the Year. Trump is a judge at this contest in 91 and in 92, but more importantly, Trump also um, has the Plaza Hotel, which at this point is going through yet another bankruptcy. Another one of his bankruptcies was the Plaza, but despite going through bankruptcy and losing control of 49% of the Plaza ownership, um, or he maybe retains only 49. Anyway, he loses control of the Plaza. He still has this contest there, but even more kind of suspiciously, he and Casablancas and a bunch of older men, at this point, they're all in their mid-40s, um, go on this boat called, like, the Taste of New York or the Something of New York.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, and with these models, and the models give an interview in real time, so this isn't like they're
yeah.
coming out 20, 30 years later with the benefit of being older and also the benefit of Donald Trump being president. And they basically say, "Yeah, we have to do what we have to do. If John Casablancas wants us to dance for Mr. Trump." This one girl is like, "I felt really uncomfortable. I didn't really wanna do it, but I was told if I wanna win this contest, I had to dance for Mr. Trump, and I had to be plied with all these drugs and all this alcohol, and sure, I'm 14." And then basically almost imply that they all had to go put out for the judges if they wanted to do well at this contest, and this contest was gonna make you the next Stephanie Seymour, the next Cindy Crawford, Naomi Campbell. This is the difference between going back to your small town and doing something and becoming a multi, millionaire model whose face is on the cover of Vogue and on the cover of all these magazines. So, you know, I want to put that in context as to what was happening because as that's happening in 1992, Trump also is caught on tape seeing a little 10-year-old girl go up Trump Tower, an escalator in Trump Tower, and he asks her if she's going upstairs, and she said, "Yeah," and he goes, "How old are you?" And she says, 10. And he, not to her, not to be sweet, like, "Oh, maybe I'll marry you one day," which would be creepy anyway. She goes away. He turns to the camera guy taping him and said, "I'm gonna be dating her in a couple years." At the same time, in 1992, there is some Christmas Carol situation happening in at the Plaza Hotel, which again he still owns at this point. And there are two 14-year-old girls who are doing these Christmas carols as part of some competition, and he runs into them. And this is early December, and he says to them, or maybe mid-December, and he says to them, "How old are you?" And they say 14, and he says to them, "I'm going to be dating you in a couple years." I mean, let's put this in perspective for all the women out there who are listening. If your husband or your dad said this to a bunch of 14-year-old girls or a 10-year-old girl, like, wouldn't you start to ask uncomfortable questions? Wouldn't you be like, "This isn't cute. This isn't like, oh, look at my husband or my brother or my father. Look at him flirting with 14, 10-year-old girls and partying with John Casablancas, who's at this point already a notorious pedophile. Like, what are you doing as a kid?" And then to put it more in perspective before we move on, and I will stop after this, I promise, that incident happens, the Plaza incident happens in early to mid-December of 92, and then in around Christmas of 92, he and Jeffrey Epstein are in that very famous picture of a bunch of models, young, very young models, young girls, partying with them at Mar-a-Lago, which is where those famous pictures now are coming from. This is well before Melania. This is about a decade before Melania. At this
Right.
point, he's single. He's dating Marla, but, you know, he's not committing to Marla, and it's not like, he's recently divorced and kind of out on the town. So, is it really out of the realm of possibility, based on everything I just said,
That
that
he's
he's doing other stuff with Jeffrey Epstein, if he's doing that kind of stuff very publicly with John Casablancas in New York? Like, why wouldn't he be? If he's making those kinds of comments to 10-year-old girls and 14-year-old girls, like, put this all together. And
yeah.
again, these are all stories that he publicly cooperated with. He thought this was hilarious.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he had the teen Miss USA pageant,
Sure, of course, he'd walk
and
everything
he's
there
on Howard
naked.
Stern talking about walking into their dressing room, hoping
Yep.
to catch them unchanging, like, and there's all this other stuff that just like you look at it, it's all there for you to see. It's right there, you know, and that's always what's baffled me is there's all this evidence and there's all this and people just like, yeah, we don't care.
I mean, I guess take Donald Trump out of this equation.
Hmm.
Let's say that you are set up on a date by a friend with some guy,
Hmm.
and you decide to do what every single woman does before going on a blind date with some guy. You Google him.
Hmm.
And let's say his name is John Smith, and all of this information comes up.
Hmm.
Would you ever go out with this guy? Like, wouldn't you have some really serious questions about what this guy is into? Just based on everything I said, all of which, again, it's not that these stories were written when Donald Trump was um,
In
president
office.
or running for president. I mean, this
Yeah.
is going back to the early 90s, where he was not just cooperating with these stories, he was going on the record and talking himself up in these stories.
Yeah. I mean, the crazy thing about it is, like, not only that, it's not even dating the guy. It's you turned him into your messiah on earth, the representative of your religion, you know?
Yeah.
Evangelical Christian nationalists are like, "No, this is our guy. He's the anointed one."
And what's so baffling to me is then if you were set up with this guy, and then a few years later you were to find out that he was potentially sending the kinds of letters to a convicted pedophile that Donald Trump was alleged to have sent yesterday in the Wall Street Journal,
Mhm.
would you be like, "Oh my god, this can't possibly be, like, what are you possibly talking about?" Of course not. Of
Right.
course.
And the thing is, I get it. If you like, let's take this, okay? You go with the benefit of the doubt, right? And I'm gonna just pull that out as far as I can. You get sucked into QAnon, you get sucked into MAGA, and you're like, Jeffrey Epstein, release the files, right? And you're like, they're hiding Democrats and Bill Clinton, because let's all right, Bill Clinton wasn't the most,
By the way, I'm a Democrat. I came up of age politically when Bill Clinton was president. I think Bill Clinton
same.
was a fantastic president. And I will tell you right now, if Bill Clinton's in those files, I'm not going to be like, heavens to Betsy, Bill Clinton. I can't. This is just a massive shocker. You know what I would say? If there's evidence that Bill Clinton slept with underage women, if the statute of limitations isn't up, prosecute Bill Clinton. Like,
Yeah.
because I'm not in a cult.
No.
Because I don't have a daughter, I have a son, but if I had a daughter, I would not want, I don't care who she is, who he is, sleeping with my underage daughter. I used to be a girl who was 14 years old. I would not want anybody sleeping with me when I was 14 years old. Like, it's not what you do with children. And it's not that you're sleeping with them. I'm sorry, I actually used the wrong verb. It's rape.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it
It's
is.
rape.
Yeah, it's not sex. It's not. There's no consent.
Right.
There's none of that. And the thing is, like, I didn't become a Democrat until really politically active until Obama. or like,
Right.
well, no, before that, it was '03. The Iraq Wars
Right.
kind of awakened me. And I remember being in the Marines, I was in the reserves, and we had to go through sexual harassment classes. And this is, during Clinton's second term, and Monica Lewinsky's going out. And I used to get furious because it's like, I'm sitting through sexual harassment classes. There's no women in my unit. And my commander in chief is going through this with Monica Lewinsky.
Absolutely, and I will tell
What
you
the
this.
hell?
Well, listen, it's interesting how perspectives change, right?
Right.
I am exactly the same age as Monica Lewinsky, exactly the same age, and when that story came out, my attitude was, "Well, they're both," I think she was 23, I was 23. You think you're very mature at 23, and I'm thinking, "All right, you know what? They're all consenting adults. She's an adult, he's an adult. If she wanted to do this and he wanted to do this, like, who am I to, that's it. The only person who should have a problem with this is Mrs. Clinton, right? Like, I don't have a problem with it on her behalf. What I realize now is, of course, the power dynamic was so completely
Oh, yeah.
unacceptable.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that she was 23 and he was 47 or 48. It's not even the age difference because, whatever. It's that the power dynamic was just so insanely out of whack.
Yep.
And that she, you know, she, by the way, has always said that she knew exactly what she was doing. It was totally consensual. So she's not sitting there feeling sorry for herself. I think where she has belatedly, from interviews I've seen with her, has come, and I don't want to speak for her, but where she's come around on this is, I was young and it was kind of out of whack for me
Mhm. Yeah.
to expect to say no to the most powerful man on earth.
Yeah.
And I think the problem continues to be with Trump and these little model girls who are 14, they're not even 23. I mean, they're a full decade almost younger than Monica was with Clinton. Is he's a judge and he is going to judge a contest where the man running the modeling agency who is plying you with alcohol and telling you to dance for the judge is effectively making it clear to you that this is your ticket out of
Mhm.
whatever backwater you're from. It is your ticket to riches. You have probably been told your whole life that your one talent is that you're really pretty and that
Mhm.
you better use it. And you're 14, you're a child. So even if he did nothing more than exploit these girls and make them feel like they had to do nothing more than get drunk and do drugs and dance in front of him, and I'm highly skeptical that that's where it ended. But even that to me is so gross because it's such an imbalance of power. And it's not like there weren't other modeling agencies, and I think of the Ford modeling agency at the time. I only know Ford because I have a very good friend whose mother was a big model at Ford. That was run by a woman, Eileen Ford. She would have these models come from whatever small town they would come from, and they would live with her because she took care of them. She was like their den mother.
Yeah.
Contrast that with this pedophile who was looking at them and figuring out, okay, I'm going to sleep with that one tomorrow and that one the next day and that one the day after. And I'm going to marry the 17-year-old and I'm going to live with the 16-year-old. And, you know, and he has this crazy quote where he said, it's like Pretty Baby. Remember that Brooke Shields movie, Pretty Baby,
Yeah.
where she was like 14? It's that girl woman dynamic that we're all so attracted to. I mean, ew. Ew. I mean, that's Lolita, right? Like,
Yeah. That's absolutely.
that's yeah.
I mean, in some like so I came up in an interesting era because I bought into a lot of what I was raised with, right? Like, so when I got into military or I got with Bill Clinton, I look at that as like he's my commander in chief. There's fraternization. You're taking advantage of someone who's a subordinate that you're
Yeah,
supposed to look out for, that you're
yeah,
supposed to be, you're supposed to maintain because not only are you her superior, her leader, you're the commander in chief. You're supposed to set the example. You're supposed to be the example, right? And looking at someone like Trump or these people like those guys in New York as a southerner, even though we have our own problems, right? But in like our place, it was this man's talking about sleeping with a 16-year-old. What the hell's wrong with him? You know, Because we used to have that, right? We used to have things like that in Appalachia. We used to have those
Yeah.
things back in the hollers, and that's it wasn't right. And so, there was this stigma when I was coming up against that kind of behavior. It happened, but those folks were ostracized from because you had the people that were like the sort of redneck side. That's what rednecks and white trash did. That's not what you were supposed to do if you were actually, if you were trying to, live in the light of the Lord, so to say, right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you say that because it is exactly why Trump has captured the imagination of MAGA because
Yeah.
they believe that the elites have been getting away with murder for
Mhm.
these many years, going back to Bill Clinton getting away with Monica, if not before. And they thought Trump was their kind of Nixon to China, for lack of a better example, where he came out of that world, but he wasn't of that world.
Mm.
He was going to destroy that world for them. And then I think they're having this is the whole intervention thing that I wrote the Substack about the other day that you and I talked about. But that's basically what I was getting at, which is like these people need intervention because he is exactly what they have professed to hate. He is, and I say this again, I grew up in New York. Then we
Mhm.
moved to New Jersey when I was 13, when I was about the same age where Donald Trump was hitting on girls. But and then I live in New York again now. And so I basically lived in the world that Donald Trump has occupied my whole life. So let me tell you as a New Yorker, what this is all about.
Mm.
He's not somebody who's gonna blow up this world. He's somebody who desperately wanted to get into this world. He was an outer borough guy from Queens whose father ran a successful but not tremendously powerful real estate empire where he built lower to middle class units for people in the outer boroughs. And
Mm.
he could never break into Manhattan. He
Yeah.
could never break into like where the real stuff was. And so the way Trump decided, when Trump did it, he went bankrupt. His father had to bail him out. He almost drove the company to the ground. There are questions about who else bailed him out, which we can have a whole separate other show about. But what's so fascinating that I don't think people understand is this is a guy who's been a striver trying to get into that world his whole life. And the way he decided to do it is he couldn't do it on merit. So he decided to have this Gilded Age facade where nothing, much like his properties, if you've ever been in a Trump facility, you understand the gold is fake. It's all
Of course. Yeah. That's
right.
why we called gilded because it
Yeah,
wasn't
gilded,
real.
right? Of course.
Yeah.
I looked at an apartment at a Trump branded. I didn't want to, but my realtor insisted that we take a look. Maybe about 20 years ago, in a Trump branded building. I'm not kidding. I am, as you could probably see from your screen, I'm not a big girl. I'm not a particularly strong girl. If I went like this to the wall, I would have probably put a hole in it. I mean, it was the cheapest, shoddiest thing on earth. So I say all this because everything was bullshit. Everything was completely manufactured.
Right.
But that's what he's so talented in, where he created this persona for himself of this man about town and this, bon vivant, and I get to sleep with the best models, and I get to, do whatever I want. And there were other guys like that out there, chief among whom was Jeffrey Epstein, who I don't know if people realize, but had very similar backgrounds.
Yeah.
Never graduated college, was a math teacher at an elite private school called Dalton, but was not somebody like Anderson Cooper went to Dalton, like all of these, who's a Vanderbilt, like all of these very, very, sort of children of the New York elite went to schools like Dalton.
Mm.
And Jeffrey Epstein taught there. He wasn't of there, he taught there. And the headmaster at Dalton at the time, which I don't know if people realize, who hired Jeffrey Epstein was Bob Barr, William Barr, Bill
I
Barr's father.
saw I saw something about it. I didn't realize
Yeah.
that until just recently.
Yes. Which I don't think there's much. I don't know what to make of that. So I'm not suggesting anything other than what a small world. But and then suddenly, out of nowhere, he goes from being a math teacher at an elite private school to being wealthier than all of the people whose children go to this private school are. And the question is, how the hell did that, like, why would you invest with a math teacher? Right? Everybody kept saying he's a genius, he's an investment genius, he's this, really? Because I've never, my son's had some great math teachers, but I'm not sure I put, $1 billion with them to invest with them. But my
Right.
point is like, what is he doing? And what is he doing working at a school with young girls? And why are those, like, what happened in those schools? Were there NDAs that were signed back then? I'm sure there were. Were there
Mhm.
lawsuits filed against Dalton? Like, somebody should really ask. uh, uh, I would love to know um, what kind of NDAs potentially were signed with the girls at Dalton who may or may not have had a claim against him, and maybe against Bill Barr's dad, because he was the
Mm.
headmaster and it really was on him too. So, but he and Trump were very similar in that way. Came out of nowhere, kind of, sui generis, and a lot of these things don't add up. And again, partying together in Palm Beach, partying together in New York, same world. John Casablancas, same kind of situation. Lots of young girls around.
I mean, absolutely.
Casablancas is a pedophile. Epstein's a pedophile. But we're supposed to believe, based on everything I just said, that Donald Trump could not possibly have been involved in any of this. Maybe, I'm not just saying he was. Maybe he wasn't, maybe he wasn't. But is it really going to blow anybody away the way it's blowing MAGA away if he was?
No. And I mean, it was funny because like I was looking or somebody hit me up today. They said, so what's going around the dark web and in the MAGA chats now is, and I've got friends that kind of monitor it and they send me like, hey,
Yeah.
this is going around. So apparently Dan Bongino's little people are
Yeah.
trying to put out, oh, when Obama was president, the Secret Service secretly took him to Epstein Island. And it's like,
I mean,
uh-huh. So and I had a short note about that. I put out a video. I said, let me go ahead and just stop you right there. That this is complete BS. One, I'll do it in 3 points now. One, if there was anything for Obama being the Epstein files, it'd be out there. Hands down. It would have been leaked. It would have been here. Boom, boom, boom. It's out. Two, this man's presidency was put under a microscope
oh
by
my God.
Fox News. His entire schedule down to the minute,
I was
right?
at Fox News for all 8 years of Obama's presidency. If Barack Obama so much as sneezed, I mean,
Yeah.
remember the terrorist fist jab where
Oh,
he
oh
and
yes.
Michelle gave each other a fist
Terrorist
bump?
fist jab?
I mean,
Question mark. The
yeah,
Cavuto mark
the
came
Cavuto,
out.
the Cavuto,
Yeah.
the best Daily Show segment. If people have not seen the Cavuto, you know what? You should somehow put that up. I don't know if you
Oh
can, but
yeah, the Cavuto
yes,
mark
the
with Jon
Cavuto was the
Stewart did.
best. The Cavuto.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting your mother's a whore, but I'm simply asking questions.
Right.
Can
And
your mother's a
South
whore?
Park did a whole parody on it, right?
Yeah.
And
Um,
I remember the tan suit thing, he gets Dijon mustard on his hamburger? Who does this? Or they even question when he went to India, a trip to India and Asia, how much, like, first they inflated the number and said, can you believe it's costing this much to protect the president? Yes.
yeah,
Yes, I
because you're all trying to
can.
murder him because you're all racist.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, I can. It's the president of the United States, most powerful man in the free world, of course. And so if this guy was taking trips to Pedophilia Island, like, there's no way that stays secret, right?
All right. Has anybody here met Michelle Obama? Does anybody think that Michelle Obama would put up with that shit for one
Oh, God,
second?
no.
For
No.
1 second?
And then the
You would
final
take
thing,
those girls and be out of there so fast? No way.
and here's the final thing, and I said this in my note, and I said, MAGA, you know this in your hearts. I'm almost willing to bet that Epstein Island was whites only. Because if these guys are sharing women and Trump being the virulent racist he is, let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it 100. No.
I don't even think it's so much that they're racist. I think it's that there is a whole world of these guys.
Mhm.
It's Dershowitz, and I'm not suggesting Dershowitz did anything wrong, but it's the people who kinda hung out in the same social circles. It's
Yeah.
Dershowitz, it's Trump, It's Epstein. It's Casablancas. It's all the guys who hang out at Mar-a-Lago, who've hung out at Mar-a-Lago for a long time. And again, I'm not suggesting that everybody who hangs out at Mar-a-Lago was part of this by any stretch of the imagination, so don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm just saying that Barack Obama is not that guy. Barack Obama is not a social guy who's going to party with his buddies. Barack Obama's idea of a good time was playing, pickup basketball.
We
That's his idea of a good time.
Even in the South, right? You knew which preachers were the messed up ones, right? It just got around. There's some young girl or somebody's sister or somebody's cousin. They're talking, right? You knew the ones that were real and you knew the ones that were the diddlers. You just knew. Now, whether, in those small towns, maybe their brother's the sheriff, or maybe they're a council member, or they're this, or they got that, and blah, blah, blah. And nobody's going to do anything about it, right? Unless you roll up on them with, your her brother calls you and says, "Hey, man, we're gonna go witness this boy. Put on,
Yeah,
put on the mask and let's go." It's like, okay,
yeah,
but that's how.
But I'll tell you this, and I think it's fascinating that people just in MAGA world fall so much for what happened today. And I wrote a whole Substack about this today. This whole they're so desperate to believe that this whole notion that, oh, well, now Trump, has got nothing to hide because he wants the grand jury testimony released. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm married to a very good one. And he happens to be a criminal defense lawyer. So he knows his way around a federal grand jury. And so I asked him before I wrote the Substack, I said, what exactly, luckily I've never had to appear, but I said, tell me what happens with a federal grand jury. And he said, in a case like this, if your goal is to indict, it's a grand jury that's convened to indict, one to indict Jeffrey Epstein, the other to indict Ghislaine Maxwell. It's not there to go fishing for 20 other guys who might have been involved, right? They have a job to do. You have an FBI agent, well, he calls it a case agent, but in this case would be an FBI agent,
right,
who would show up as sort of the narrator, and the prosecution would say the defense lawyer is not even allowed in. So the prosecution would basically say the prosecutor would say to the FBI agent, Mr. So-and-so, tell us what you know about Jeffrey Epstein. And he would say, Jeffrey Epstein had sex with I'm going to make this up, right? 5 14-year-old girls. And he did it on day A, day B, day C, day D. And I spoke to those, by the way, hearsay is admissible. So I spoke to those girls and they said this is what happened. And in a case like this, typically they would bring in a few of those girls and they would say to those girls, did you sleep with Jeffrey Epstein under penalty of perjury? And those girls would say, yes, I did. And that's it. The indictment would be handed down and there's your grand jury testimony. It's not like they would start asking the grand jury questions about who else did you sleep with, because nobody else is being indicted that day. It's just Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
And separately, they wouldn't even ask probably about Ghislaine Maxwell in the Epstein grand jury. In the Maxwell grand jury, same thing would happen. They bring in the girls. Did Ghislaine Maxwell recruit you to sleep with Jeffrey Epstein or with other men? Yes, he did. First of all, no judge in the world is going to allow this testimony to be released because there's never a good reason to release grand jury testimony unless there's some sort of prosecutorial misconduct. And again, I am parroting this from somebody who knows much more than I do about this. But more relevantly about this is that it's not like there is not evidence that exists in interviews that they did with other witnesses.
Yeah.
And that was never presented to the grand jury because you don't need that testimony to indict. All you need from a grand jury is an indictment. Then you fight over what's admissible with the other evidence. So therefore, because it was not part of the grand jury, she, meaning Pam Bondi, can release that information right now. So she could release, they're called 301s, but she can release all the witness testimony, which was not before the grand jury. She can release all the tapes. She can release all the wiretaps. She can release if that notebook exists with Donald Trump And that letter wasn't just Trump, right? It was apparently Lex Wexner and others. Uh, if that notebook exists, she can release that. There is a trove
Mhm.
of evidence that they collected from both Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell because they were going to go to trial, and they did with Ghislaine Maxwell, did go to trial. Some of which was admissible, some of which maybe they felt was not necessary. And don't forget, Epstein was indicted by Bill Barr's Justice Department, which means that they weren't going to ask questions about Donald Trump.
No.
So, from that perspective, what are we doing here? The whole thing is such a joke.
Yep.
If MAGA really wants transparency on this, come what may, forget the grand jury testimony because all you're going to see in the grand jury testimony, and this is why Bondi and Trump are so smart because they know that their base is not going to ask questions. That they're going to be like, well, Trump was never mentioned in the grand jury testimony. Of course he wasn't. You know who else wasn't? Bill Clinton.
Right.
You know who else wasn't? Anybody else besides Jeffrey Epstein because they were only indicting Jeffrey Epstein that day.
Yep. And even I would know that as a non-lawyer.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah. I mean, it's or with a modicum of just bare baseline research, and that's it. And the thing is, where these folks have to come to, right, is you are at a point where you either admit this was never about, like, if this is about justice for those women, then you follow it wherever it goes.
For those girls, let's be
Yeah.
clear. They're not
Okay.
women. Well,
There you go. They're women now.
They're women now.
That's what I
But
meant.
you know what?
Yes.
They're justice. But I think that's an important
I know.
distinction.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's a very, very
Yeah.
good point. We have to keep that in context. You want justice for those girls, you follow that evidence wherever it leads. I'm willing to do that. It doesn't matter if
I couldn't care less.
if it is Barack Obama, I'd be like, damn, really? Okay, then, let's
Yeah.
let's prosecute them. Let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
Because you're not in a cult.
No,
Because you don't belong to a cult. Because you are a sentient, rational person who understands there's more important stuff in the world than partisan tribalism.
right.
No matter how much you believe in the Democratic Party or its values. But if somebody who represents the Democratic Party had those kinds of values, I don't want them around.
No.
I don't want them in my party.
I don't want
Gone.
them in my country.
I don't want.
Right?
Yes,
I don't want. I mean, I don't want them on this earth. Let's go out.
Well,
Lock them up. I mean, that's the thing.
yeah. And
I don't want them in society. I don't want them. I don't want them in the country. I don't want them in the community. I don't want them around you. I don't want them around anybody. Lock them up.
And what's so fascinating to me is, I was tweeting about this last night, and Roger Stone, who I know a little bit, tweets at me and he goes, I know what was going on down there, and it was all Democrats, some of whom you'd be surprised.
Sure, Roger.
Okay, by the way, Roger, great. Show me the evidence. Show it to me. Show me the evidence. Because right now you're just some guy tweeting, right?
Yeah, you're just some Russian asset, that just it was tweeting at me.
And I said that to him. I go, Roger, you know we're around a grand jury for obvious reasons. So you know what they ask, and you know what they don't ask.
Right.
And if the goal is to indict, a grand jury is convened to indict Jeffrey Epstein. Tell me what you know about Jeffrey Epstein. Did you have sex with Jeffrey Epstein? Yes, I did. Thank you very much. Here's the bill of indictment. Next.
Yeah. And he never made it to trial, and so we'll never know. And
he never made it to trial. And look, unfortunately, Virginia Giuffres, I think how you pronounce her last name.
Yeah.
Who was Virginia Roberts before that. She died, I guess, of suicide. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but people keep dropping dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand why these women who used to be girls are reluctant to stand up and be the first to raise their hand and say, yeah, you know what? I remember being trafficked to Donald Trump.
Yeah, because I mean, if you want to stay alive, I mean, you are putting your life on the line, quite literally.
Because it's not just that there's some crazy, like, conspiracy that the government's gonna come kill you. It's the MAGA crazies.
Mhm.
I mean, this is the same reason I spoke to a member of Congress who I'm pretty close to, a couple of months ago, and he said that he has Republican friends on the other side of the aisle, longtime Republicans who know better, and they say to him, "Hey, listen, I gotta vote the way I've gotta vote, not because I believe in it, but because I'm scared for my wife and kids. I'm in DC
Mhm.
half the week. They're home by themselves in some rural district half the week, and we get death threats telling us that if we don't do what Donald Trump wants, they're gonna come for my family. I don't need that shit." And now put yourself in the shoes of these girls,
Right. 100%.
and it's heartbreaking. But that's what I mean about a cult, because it's just the whole movement. The whole movement is not ideological, because if it were ideological, they would have praised Obama for deporting more undocumented migrants than Donald Trump ever did.
Yep.
If it were ideological, they would say, come what may, I want answers about anybody involved with this pedophile. I don't care if it's Bill Clinton or Donald Trump or whoever. What they want and what this is all about is,
Mhm.
and I quote, sticking it to the libs.
That's it. Because at this point, that's what you have. Like, to me, I'm saying to MAGA, that's what you have to admit. You either want justice for these girls, or you just wanted to punish the other team, and
That's all.
you could care less.
That's all. And when you thought it was Bill Clinton
No.
and Bill Gates or whoever else they think it was,
Yeah.
then great. But when all of a sudden there are uncomfortable questions about the fact that it could be Donald Trump, and the part that's so crazy to me is, don't they think that if it were just Bill Clinton and Bill Gates, Donald Trump would have released this a long time ago?
100%. If it was either one of them, you
And
know?
why is he so desperate to put an end to this discussion? Why is he calling up Charlie Kirk and screaming at him after Turning Point USA last weekend? Why is he calling up Rupert Murdoch or whoever he called at Fox News? It might have been Suzanne Scott, the current
Yeah.
head of Fox News, whoever at Fox News, and screaming that you've got to. I mean, Fox News went from talking about Epstein 24/7 last week to talking about it not at all this week.
Mhm.
Why? Why? Because they got a phone call. Charlie Kirk admitted he got a phone call from Trump to stop talking about this. If it were just Democrats, why would Donald Trump insist that people stop talking about this? Do we
Right.
really think he cares about Bill Clinton?
No. And if it was, he would be the first one. Like, if it was Bill Clinton, you know, chatted up a 14-year-old girl, at the county fair, and there was evidence of that where it's like, it didn't, he'd be like, "Oh, look at this." You'd have it. It would be plastered on Fox News everywhere. But where is it? It would have leaked by now. All that stuff would have leaked.
Of course, because they would have weaponized the hell out of that. Now, their attitude is, if this were Donald Trump, Joe Biden would have weaponized the hell out of this. My guess is that Joe Biden, there probably are Democrats, high profile Democrats, and high profile Republicans, including maybe Trump, on that list. And my attitude is that Biden was probably like, I don't want to,
Yeah.
I don't want to harm people I care about, so let's just leave it alone. And that's inexcusable, by the way, if that's the case. But
Mhm.
there's your answer, MAGA, as to why probably it didn't happen. What's your answer as to
Right.
why it's not happening?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it's if that was, if people knew and they didn't do anything about it, okay, look, let's go after them.
But
You
I'll
know?
tell you how much. But I'll tell you how much crazier it's going to get, because I kind of, this occurred to me last night and I stuck it in my Substack today. But I don't know whether the judge who's going to be deciding as to whether to grant this um, release of the grand jury testimony, which, let's be very clear, it's not going to happen. But I
Right.
don't know if the petition, if Pam Bondi's petitioning the judge who heard the Epstein case the first time. That judge is a man named Judge, I think his last name is Berman, in New York, in the Southern District of New York,
Mhm.
was appointed by Bill Clinton. Okay?
Mm, okay.
He's been on the bench for a long time. You know that when he
Oh, yeah.
denies you know that when he denies the release of this testimony, which he of course will because in the history of the grand jury in the United States, I don't think they've ever released grand jury testimony under this kind of scenario. They did it after people keep saying, "What about Nixon? What about Nixon?" Yeah, in 2011, Nixon was long dead,
Mhm.
and that was Nixon's grand jury testimony after he got immunized and got a pardon from Gerald Ford.
Yeah.
So he was dead, and this is for historic purposes. Historians wanted to release the grand jury, and that's when a judge said, "Fine, we'll release it." In this kind of scenario, because of just prurient public interest, so what? The judge doesn't care about the court of public opinion. All a judge cares about is the court of law. A court of law is very clear. There is no circumstance like this that merits the release of grand jury testimony. But what they're going to say now is, oh, he's a Clinton appointee. He's not releasing it because it's protecting Bill Clinton.
Yeah, and I think part of them may be counting on that, you know?
It's not part of it. I think they have set
Yeah.
this up beautifully
Yep.
for their
You know,
base. For their base.
100%.
We want grand jury testimony released, understanding that their base has no effing clue about what is
Mm.
not grand jury testimony. We want, and better yet, if it's the woman who heard, the judge who heard the Maxwell grand jury, I think she might have been an Obama appointee.
Yeah. Mhm.
But the Epstein one was a Clinton appointee. So the point is, that's what this is going to be next. Oh, it's a Clinton judge. These activist judges
Mhm.
don't want to do what the people have elected Donald Trump to do, but Trump is going to say reluctantly, I have to um, abide by these court orders, but
Just this once. I gotta
just
buy
this once.
every
But
other time I can just throw them
yeah,
out the window.
reluctantly, but but it's such a joke and it's such a scam, and that's what I mean about how much. I mean, they think that Trump is playing four-dimensional chess, whereas the only thing Donald Trump is playing is them.
Yep, that's it.
That's it. He's playing them every day in every way, and they keep falling for it. And they keep falling for it, not even because they don't deep down know what's happening, but because they so desperately want to fall for it, right?
Yeah.
It's like that bad boyfriend who keeps coming back and saying to you, this time I've changed, I swear to God, and you kind of deep down know he's never gonna change. He's still that kind of
But I mean it
that
this
that
time, Julie. You
Right,
gotta
no,
stop bringing up our
but
dirty laundry. Come on, girl. I
it's
mean
not even that. But it's not even that I mean it. Like, he doesn't mean it, but you so desperately wanna believe him because 'cause you're
I
so in
mean it
love. You're
this
so
time,
desperate.
Julie. You
Yeah,
leave
because
that lawyer husband of yours and I'll meet come on, we'll travel the world, girl.
only if I could wake you up at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, "Hey, can I just run this past you before I publish on the Substack about the grand jury?" But,
That's
but
a
yeah.
good husband right there. He's
Yeah,
like, all right.
he's the best husband, he's great. He's great in many ways, always. But that's what it is, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
we've all been in those relationships where it's not the right relationship, but you so desperately wanna believe. And that is what they're in with Donald Trump, and he is playing them, and playing them, and playing them because he knows. And as I wrote in my Substack that you and I had emailed about, they were gonna stand by him
Mhm.
if he shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, but what
Mhm.
they haven't yet realized is he's shooting them.
Yep.
He's telling them to get the hell out of his movement if if they don't believe him. He's
Mhm.
telling them that if they don't believe him, that they're losers and whiners and complainers and
Weaklings. Yep.
weaklings.
Stupid.
I
Yeah.
mean, this is like an abusive relationship.
Oh,
This is I
it
mean,
absolutely is.
this is like domestic violence almost. I mean, it's the
It
same kind of it's crazy.
it is like we had I have a friend, and we'll talk about politics and his wife is one of those, folks is like, hey, we gotta be empathetic to these MAGA folks. We gotta try to reach out. And I agree with that to a certain point. And I'm kind of one of these people who's like, look, at a certain point, you got to take responsibility for this stuff. You've got to, and the hard part is at this point, it's you're going to have a lot of MAGA folks that you know they're gonna anything they can to latch on to, they're gonna grab it, right? But there are gonna be some folks that this is it, that this where they break away. And I think for this, it's you know we can't beat those folks over the head. Like we got to say, look, you know, you can. The hard part is welcoming them back in and saying, all right,
1,000%. But if by now you're still there, I can't help you. And I have to say, I don't know if you've ever been friends. I don't know if you've ever been friends with an alcoholic or a drug addict. I had a very close friend who was a very, very, very
I've known
bad.
a few. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've known a few.
I had a good friend who was addicted to coke very seriously.
Yeah.
And her husband pulled me aside because she would fall off the wagon and I'd say it's okay. And I kind of always like enable her. And her husband finally pulled me aside shortly before he left her and said, you're enabling this bad behavior by not kicking her to the curb and saying to her, if you're going to come back from rehab and the next day start up again, then I can't be around you. I can't help you. And he was right. And he was right.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And eventually she got clean because she'd lost too many things in life that she cared about. But conversely, I get the attraction for MAGA, right? I get the fact that a lot of these people see this as almost like a revival and not a political movement. This
Mhm.
is a guy who's saying out loud all the stuff that they've probably thought in their heads
Yeah.
and for a long time. And when I was younger, I was, the band Fish.
Yeah.
So I was really into Fish. When I was in college, people make fun of me all the
Uh,
time, including
yeah, that was the thing back then.
yeah,
Yeah.
but, like, I was really into Fish, and I would follow them around the Northeast, and luckily, I went to college in New England, and that's where they're from, so I used to go to a lot of Fish shows, and it was fun. It wasn't just going to a concert the way you go see the Rolling Stones or somebody. Like, it was fun. You go to, like, show after show, you'd run into the same people. It was much more than just going to a concert. It was kind of like
It's like the
a
Deadheads,
it was like the Deadheads. Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
I'm a heavy metal fan, so it's like it's a
yeah.
similar kind of a scene.
It's like going to a Gwar show.
Oh, I've
Yeah.
been to Guar shows. Yeah.
Well, you go to Gwar shows, you probably run into the same people at Gwar shows that you've run into
Yep.
in different Gwar shows, right?
Mhm.
And it's not like going to it's like you're right, it's like following Grateful Dead around where, like, same crew, and it's not just the music, it's the camaraderie, and it's this, and that's what these MAGA
Yeah.
rallies are, and that's what I'm sure these, like, Turning Point USA conventions are, and
Yeah.
these CPAC conventions are, and so on. But at some point, they have to understand the people running those are grifters.
Yeah.
They know better. They know better. Charlie Kirk is somebody who would probably, if not for Donald Trump, would probably be living in his mom's basement doing something right now at the age of 31 that's not making him tens of millions of dollars. But he's really rich as a result of this. Everybody, Fox News, I work with these guys. Let me tell you something. And I really want people to hear me on this because I know a lot of these people. 80% of them get the joke,
Yeah.
but they're all monetizing it really nicely.
Mhm.
Jesse
I've
Waters gets the joke. Tucker
Mhm.
Carlson, the racism is real. The rest of it gets the joke.
Mhm. I've
I just I have sympathy for these people. But having
Yeah.
said that, enough is enough, right? Like, you gotta break the addiction here, my friends, because he doesn't want you. He doesn't give a shit about you. He's using you for his own nonsense. He looks down on you.
like the way I kind of look at it as is when I was a lifeguard, back in the day, I got a lifeguard training as Boy Scout, and I got one as a junior lifeguard. So I did that. And one of the things they train you with is when um you're saving somebody and they're in panic mode, right? If you're not careful, they could drown you by panicking. And so they come up, push you under the water, try to stand. It's just like, there you go. So you have to push them off and to try to keep yourself alive. Now, maybe they wear out, you can save them then, or you have to be mentally prepared that these people may die. So you don't, because if you get in trouble, then another person has to come save you, or you're going to die, right?
Yep.
So my point with that is like some of these people are gonna like, and I know there's somebody's family members, there's somebody's, cousins, aunts, uncles, mother, father. Some of them are probably beyond saving. They're gone. Like they're so far in the cult. They may never come back. They just may never come back. And by trying to keep them around in your life, by giving them unfettered access to community and letting them come over and wreak havoc in your lives, it's like you are hurting yourself.
You know, I'm a big believer in, if people are in your life, your brother, your mother, your whoever, family members, like, don't lose them over politics. I've always believed that. I'm finding it harder and harder to live up to that mantra, because they're supporting somebody who's actually out to destroy not their lives, but also our lives. Um, Whether it's taking healthcare away from people that I care about, whether it's preventing women I care about from getting the prenatal care they need,
Right.
or getting an abortion, whether it is um, arresting children and throwing them in a concentration camp in Florida who
Yeah.
did nothing wrong, for their parents who are not the worst, but just purely, came here at the age of 11 and stayed. This is this is getting to the point of, would you treat Vladimir Putin well if he was a member of your family?
Hmm.
I hate to make Hitler analogies, but we're trending in that direction.
We are.
This is starting to impact people in a really awful way, and he's responsible for it, and his people are responsible for it because they abet it. And everything he does, they make excuses for. They
Mhm.
just make excuses for it. So look, the best thing we can do is, he's about to nationalize elections, or he's already trying. They're subpoenaing, voter rolls in states.
Yep.
So it's about to get really dark. It's about to get really, really, really dark. And I don't know that I have time anymore to sit there and try to bring people over to our side who are that much in the cult. There are people who voted for him because they bought into his policy bullshit, but they're not
Right.
necessarily just believers. But the true believers, as you said, we're getting to the point where I don't know that I could be the lifeguard, and they're drowning and they're flailing and they're going to pull me down with them. So maybe I just have to cut them loose.
And I mean, it's you have to decide on where you're going to be and how they're going to be in your lives. But this is getting to the point where it's no longer just, oh, it's Democrats versus Republicans, and you know, like we're arguing over a 3% marginalized tax increase, or we're arguing over like where the line is in public and private equity, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is getting to the point where you're supporting a man who's a pedophile, right? You are supporting concentration camps. You are supporting horrible things. And at this point, and you're making excuses for it. This is fast becoming not differences in political debate. This is a values and a morals question. You know,
Well, yeah, we're not arguing about tax policy anymore. Absolutely right.
no, and
Listen,
so like, oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if I told you this
You got a heart out.
we got on the show, but I gotta get, yeah, I have a hard out at 8 o'clock Eastern my time, so
No
I gotta
problem.
jump just because I feel a little rude leaving these people
No, no,
behind.
no, no, I
But
figured.
can we please do this more often? Can you please do my
Yes.
Substack? Can we do
Oh,
this?
yes, I would love to come on your Substack. Let's do it
Done,
anytime.
done, and done. All right, we will set up a time. To everybody who joined us, thank you,
Thank
especially
you.
on a Friday night. I really appreciate it. Okay,
Appreciate you guys. Have a good one, Julie. Thank you
bye.
again.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.